Shop, episode 89, a conversation with the General Manager of Marzocco USA, Andrew Daday. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools that you need to grow as a coffee service professional. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host for the show, and I'm excited to bring you this conversation with Andrew Daday, the General Manager, the guy in charge over at Marzocco USA. Really honored to have him on the show, and some really great conversation around innovation and leadership and values. So stay tuned. Right now, I want to say thank you so much to our sponsors here at Keys to the Shop. That's starting with Prima Coffee. Prima Coffee, of course, is a specialty coffee equipment supplier based out of Louisville, Kentucky. And from the beginning of their company, they've set out to make the best coffee brewing equipment available to the general public. Their focus is on curating the best equipment for every need. So if you need grinders, espresso machines, under-counter refrigeration, commercial equipment, home equipment, it doesn't matter. They have pretty much anything you can think of. What you need to do is go to their website, prima-coffee.com, and just check out what they have to offer for yourself. And I think you're going to be pleased because there's also a lot of resources that they've made available and have created for the products that they offer, how to use them, best care for them. It's really wonderful, and they just put a big emphasis on having the expertise to help their customers get the right gear to fit every situation. So I vouch for them. They're really amazing to work with, and I highly encourage you to go to prima-coffee.com, and thank you, Prima, for your support of Keys to the Shop. Also want to give a shout out here to Pacific Foods, who is the company behind the Pacific Barista Series line of non-dairy performance beverages, which are designed specifically for professional baristas and the standards of excellence they demand. So whether it's almond milk, soy, coconut, rice, or now oat milk, its ability to take the heat of steaming and produce an unmatched silky texture and keep the flavor balance focused on coffee, it makes it a perfect choice for your cafe's menu. They are a huge supporter of the specialty coffee industry, and they really show it by listening to and serving the needs of specialty coffee professionals. So go visit pacificfoods.com, that's pacificfoods.com, and see how the Barista Series line of non-dairy beverages can help elevate the performance of your cafe's non-dairy game. So today we are honored to welcome Andrew Daday, who is the General Manager of Marzocco USA, to the show. This conversation ranged everywhere from innovation to leadership and culture. Andrew is a longtime industry veteran, 15 years in the specialty coffee industry. He grew up on an organic farm and was early in his career heavily involved in the culinary world before he found his way into coffee. In fact, he was behind or operating some of the most iconic restaurants in Seattle, like Wild Ginger and Queen City Grill and Via Tribunale. And, throughout his career, he always had a strong connection to farming, of course, growing up on a farm and working with people. But it was the move to the coffee industry that would see all of his strengths that he developed over the years through training and mentorship and experience just come together, from roaster to a two-time director of coffee for Cafe Vita and Stumptown Coffee Roasters. He built strong teams, lasting relationships with farmers, and was a champion for sustainable agriculture on a global level. Andrew has stepped into the role of General Manager for Marzocco USA in early 2017, and he oversees all daily operations for the stateside company's business. So no small task, but I think what you'll find quickly in this conversation is that Andrew presents a certain depth of character and value that one would expect is needed to be able to manage such a large swath of business for one of the world's most respected and iconic espresso machine manufacturers. So it was really great to dive into the inner workings of, who is Andrew Daday and what drives him in this position? What are his values as a leader? We talk about La Marzocco, we talk about innovation, we talk about the connection to the customer, the balance between serving so many different needs in the global coffee community. We talk about the culture that they foster there at La Marzocco and how they view their partnerships with cafes. And of course, as any good leader will, Andrew sheds some light on some key characteristics of good leadership that if you're a manager, if you're an owner, somebody who has any type of authority, I think you're going to find this episode very worthwhile to listen to. I'm really impressed by Andrew's clarity of purpose and humility in his view towards service and what he does in his role. So there is a lot in this conversation, so let's just get right into it. Here is my conversation now with the General Manager of La Marzocco USA, Andrew Daday. Well, hello, Andrew, and welcome to Keys to the Shop. Really honored to have you here.
Thank you, Chris. I'm honored to be here. It's great to get a chance to talk with you.
You had just a really adventurous weekend. SCA was just a couple days ago, really. Things are kind of settling down for you?
They are. We're jumping back into both business as usual and then connecting with all the great contacts and connections we made through what was a really productive show and a great time to showcase our stuff in the marketplace.
Well, you've been very successful in introducing a ton of stuff into the market that's kind of game-changing. We're going to talk about that a bit in our discussion later on. You've been in the coffee industry for quite a while now. How many years total have you been in the coffee industry?
I've been in the industry for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
I have. I've been incredibly blessed and fortunate to have a varied and multi-access career to a lot of different aspects of the coffee world. It's just been thrilling.
I mean, what attracted you to the coffee industry to start with? I love talking to people about their origin stories, especially folks that are just longtime veterans of the industry. So what kind of attracted you to this industry in particular?
It was the fantastic synthesis or synergy between four of the things that I love the most in the world. And I have always been, since I grew up on an organic farm in Michigan, I've always been very involved in agriculture. And really the provenance and quality of food products was something that has resonated with me since my early days. Combine that with a culinary background. And I spent the early part of my career no surprise, jumping from that appreciation of agriculture into jumping into the restaurant industry, where I was able to work in great kitchens around the United States, mostly on the East Coast. And that combined with this global perspective and then the most complex consumable product that we consume all came together in an opportunity. And that opportunity was to become a coffee roaster. And coffee roasting is one of the most engaging culinary processes anyone can be involved in, and it's so intensely gratifying. So all those factors came together to provide my entree into the industry, and I've been able to take on different facets and cover different avenues of the industry through great opportunities.
Excellent. So this just clicked with you. You could have pursued a life of the culinary arts in food or, pastry or whatever, but coffee just clicked with you.
It clicked across the board, Chris. I've always loved, and in fact, part of I think my desirability to future employers was that I had spent a lot of time already traveling in coffee producing countries, not focusing on coffee itself, but it was certainly forefront of my mind. I've always been an avid coffee drinker and love the nuance and complexity of coffee, but it was really being able to connect with the people, the place, and then come back and have such a key role in the transformation of green coffee into a roasted beverage just resonated beyond belief with me.
You made your way into management roles pretty quickly after that. You've taken on some pretty heavyweight roles of director of coffee and managerial work. How did that come about, and how did you in particular find out that you were gifted in these areas, that this was something you were good at, managing people and organizations?
A great question and pleasure to answer. The simplest was opportunity and the ability to take risk, but where that came from was twofold. I benefited from having incredible mentors, not only in the coffee industry, but throughout my career. And having a relationship with mentors who are also often your bosses really helps. It helped me identify avenues that I could grow into. And as organizations grow, there's opportunities that come with that growth that allow you to test yourself. And, one of the maxims I work with, organizationally is that we all are managers. As much as we might want to shy away from that or move into a role where that light doesn't shine down on us, we're all leading each other. We're all working towards a common goal, and that goal may be as specific as the goal of the individual department tied to the organization. But ultimately, we all have to manage each other and manage ourselves. I found from my restaurant background that running kitchens was very similar to running a roastery, and that provided me a head start, if you will, in some of the most basic organizational skills and the brigade mentality that's necessary when you're working through roasting operations. And once I had gotten enough experience and continued to grow my confidence in the industry and had been building on my knowledge base, it became apparent that I could work with other teams and help them achieve their goals. And I think the opportunities in the coffee industry, although sometimes the pathways are not as obvious, I think if people change their perception a bit, it's really easy to see areas for people to grow into and to get further involved. So at the end of it, it really came down to getting identified by peers and some of my mentors and getting that coaching to feel confident to take on bigger tasks and more responsibility.
I love that thought that we're all managers and we do all influence one another, even though many people, after their handle online, say that they're an influencer, quote unquote. Obviously, we all had a great teacher or a good friend or mentor, like you were describing, who might not have described themselves that way, but maybe they carried themselves like a manager and took responsibility to speak into your life and my life, and it really does change the tide of the industry. It can put you in a place where you can make decisions, as you are now at the helm of one of the world's most respected, largest and most influential espresso machine manufacturers out there. And so it's no small thing to be a manager in your everyday life, it sounds like.
Well, thanks for the kind words. I mean, again, I'm just blessed by the doors that have opened and the opportunities that have gone along with those doors opening, on being able to take on and have this chance to steward in the United States this incredible legacy brand and the heritage that comes with it, and to absorb the responsibility of a fantastic team and aspirations of employees and friends to do more in the industry. And not to also forget, and I think this is a nice theme that I came across when I was looking through some of the other podcasts, that the category of customers that you talk about, the community of coffee producers and coffee growers as tied to the community of people that come in our cafes, really all of our jobs is to be a bridge between those two worlds. And I think that that has played a huge role in successes past, and I'm really hoping that it'll be part of our program, a successful program, as we steward La Marzocco USA further into the future.
That's excellent. I love that it is a theme of our industry, and it sounds like, especially with your kind of agrarian background, growing up on a farm, the connection to the land and to the end product is super strong, and I love that. now in your position as general manager of La Marzocco USA, I wonder what specifically are you charged with overseeing? Describe to us your role and its influence.
The role general manager actually is really aptly described, although it's not commonly used in our business outside of possibly running restaurants or cafes. It's more of an used in the Italian hierarchy. And so I oversee the entire business unit here, and that means I work in very, very closely with our financial team, our marketing team, our sales team, our after solutions team, on our market, on the goals of our market, our aspirations, how we continue to provide support, developing more plans to engage people in the industry. And then the other facet of my job, which is fantastic, is I become the primary liaison with the factory and with our Italian team. That is one of the more gratifying aspects because of the dynamic that exists across two very different worlds of coffee and two different trajectories of coffee. And so I become, in a way, a mouthpiece to explain our market back to our Italian team and to help them understand the direction and needs of the strong barista community and the cafe world and where people think coffee is going. So it's a fairly wide scoping job. The top line items are managerial and about team building, retaining culture. And then I get the fun bonus, aside from that, of really working on internal team development and then across global connection associated with one of the most, in my feelings, precious coffee machine manufacturing brands that exists.
Yeah, it sounds like you're very passionate about this position.
I am. I mean, I can go into a little anecdote if you don't
absolutely.
mind. I spoke earlier about mentorship and opportunity, and this role was offered to me, although I had fantasized about its potentiality at many different points in my career, because Joe Monahan, who has been leading La Marzocco USA, La Marzocco North America, on and off for really the last 15 to 18 years, is retiring. And he, through a series of events, I had asked him for some ongoing mentoring advice, which he had always provided for me and did so again in this case. And at the end of a long call where he was helping me sort through some of the opportunities I was having in a previous role, he asked and then in turn offered this role to me to be part of his succession plan and to take over the things that he's created in this market and the team that he's assembled, and to start leading forward in this new generation of the company. And that just doesn't happen anymore, and it's so rare, and it's such a singular opportunity that is so heartfelt for me. It falls into this idea. I'm so prideful of the brand. I'm so devoted to the brand and to the coffee industry that I really couldn't have a better spot to grow in.
You mentioned something earlier that I wanted to dig into a little bit, and that is the management of culture. In coffee shops, that's huge. People don't go to a coffee shop for very long if the culture is very bad and the service is bad. Why is it so critical for a machine manufacturer to also have a healthy culture?
That's an excellent question. I think we have a historical and heritage culture that is very important to recognize and understand, and that is one of artisan handcrafted pieces of equipment with the highest level of expertise and quality, and that provides a foundational connection point internally for our kind of like our overarching culture. But then when you start extending into the world, with branch offices in many locations now, La Marzocco has this opportunity to connect at that most primary level with the cafe owner, with the roasting company over the piece of equipment that as you mentioned earlier, transforms the roasted coffee into that wonderful beverage. And having strong cultural connections with all of our partners folds us into their business in a way that nothing else could. We're passionate, we're prideful, we're devoted, but we also believe in some very basic things on how we should treat people and the hospitality of our organization, how we should continue to grow people within a company. So in part, we get to practice our culture and who we are. In another way, we get to offer that culture as a paradigm that other people can plug into, hopefully like, admire, and learn about, and create that exchange where we become part of other people's culture, where our story and other stories intertwine. And I think that in this day and age, coffee is driven by culture. It's driven by people, and people are connected by their values and culture. And it's critical for us to have culture, but also to extend that culture in a very intentional way forward for all people to participate in.
That's wonderful. I mean, integration of culture and just being familiar with the needs of your primary customers, but also coworkers in the greater industry, in the supply chain of coffee, is really critical. So that's awesome to hear. And, the machine is such a precious thing in the eyes of the barista. And, the machine innovations have gotten better and better. And, there are days and nights you just spend with your equipment. And so it's very personal for the working barista or the cafe owner because their livelihoods depend on it. Obviously, over the years, La Marzocco has been just innovating and improving the technology and the reliability. Being integrated with your cafe customers sounds like it has a big role to play in that. And I've always kind of wondered, we go from the Linea to Strata, and now this new release of the Modbar AV that just happened at SCA. Congrats, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how do you go about actually just collecting the information from consumers of your espresso machines, the cafes, and integrating that into such a large production? Because La Marzocco is not a small company. So how does the voice of the cafe owner kind of trickle up, so to speak, into change?
Because it's our primary conduit point for information, and the team that's assembled not only here but across many other markets and in Italy loves to be in the market. We love cafes. We're in coffee because we want to be in coffee, and because we're so connected to that experience that happens in cafes. And over time, we've developed very key relationships with partners that are our customers, where feedback, not only on improving existing models, but on the idea, that fantasy of like, what if the machine could do this? Or I see the trend coming where we're going to want to relieve some burden from the barista, or to change some spatial consideration in a cafe to drive different conversations. So as our partners start getting us this kind of feedback, we take this feedback to the factory and start working both with Roberto Bianchi and his team on the research and development side, and start seeing what's feasible and what we can do. We feel at this point in the evolution of coffee and our evolution as a company that we really can offer a machine almost to anyone in the industry, depending on where they're coming into it and what their specific needs and the subset of requirements that would go to those needs. The Modbar AV is an example that it combines both two really exciting elements that are going on concurrently. One is this idea of shared experience and removing barriers. It's also, almost a metaphor for some of the things that are going on in coffee as well. And opening up that space between the customer and the barista with a beautiful sculpted Modbar is fantastic. It really provides an opportunity for new conversation, different potential design layouts, rethinking the structure of cafes. Then the next step into that is, well, maybe we need to have auto volumetrics as a way to simplify certain aspects of the craft process that allow people to work in their environment without having to focus exactly so hard on some of the details that technology has proven to be able to handle very, very well. And so it's really easy to get excited about such a space and dynamic changing piece of equipment on that front. You flip-flop that, and you can look at a machine like the Leva, which allows for the most intimate adjustment and customization of your coffee. That it's infinitesimal, that the things that it can't do, I should say. The machine really is the ultimate expression of a heritage idea, but taken to a new level, where the barista is completely in control of extraction, temperature, dose, pressure. And that particular scenario really paves the way for a lot of future conversations about what the barista community, what cafe owners are going to want to do with their coffee to translate all of the work that's gone before, into this beverage that hopefully, entices people to come in on a daily basis to enjoy that in a cafe. So, a little bit of a rambling answer, my apologies, but I really think that innovation is lockstep with La Marzocco and with our industry. The industry is evolving incredibly rapidly, and as a machine company, we will continue to evolve and to innovate and bring new products forward that answer some of the basic questions of the industry. Better coffee, faster coffee, more reliable equipment, easier production flows, better ergonomics. All of those play into a huge role into how we think about what's going to happen next.
Oh, certainly. It's so critical. Thank you for that. I was just imagining the conversations you're talking about, the different kinds of conversations that you can have over a mod bar versus the Leva, or the just the fact that the espresso machine is always sort of there, like a kind of a coffee table. It's or a conversation piece in the cafe. It almost can't help but be that. And so it sounds like it's always the catalyst for conversation. Even back when it was just an eagle on top of a large golden dome. We're making flashy espresso machines right from the beginning until now, right?
That's so true. Yeah, the vertical boiler machines, and then the transition forward. You spoke of that place that the coffee machine takes, and to me, it's almost like the hearth or the heart, and it's the center of the business. It's the place where a lot of the interaction takes over, and as people have become more in tune with how their food is prepared, how their food is sourced. Open kitchens and open format dining areas are growing in popularity. It's no small coincidence that the industry in the coffee side is growing to accommodate that kind of personalized interaction and transparency into process and preparation. So I think it's a really good point in the industry.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the people that you serve, and it's easy for us. I think a lot of the audience here, we are in specialty coffee, and not everybody who uses the La Marzocco espresso machine is serving the same level of, or is concerned with like weighing their shots, for instance, or the things that the mod bar does. Maybe they're not so interested in that, and they're interested in something a little bit more simple or straightforward. What is the balance for you when considering what to do in innovation to both meet the needs of customers that are fine with the way things are, and also meet the needs and the desires of people who are wanting to push the envelope?
That's a fantastic kind of bifurcation of where things go. The customers that are looking for durability of equipment, reliability in machines, we have a huge commitment to continue to deliver on that promise, as well as to keep the cost of equipment reasonable, so that the entry point into the industry doesn't become absurd like it can in other industries. So we work quite a bit on the front of what we do with the Linea Classic. The PB represents an evolution of that, but it really is fundamentally grounded in that customer base and that desire to connect, to really grow specialty coffee, because we also find that machine set finds its way into the industry and helps become a transition point as people become more and more engaged, knowledgeable, and participate at a different level. And then we jump to kind of the other end, and it's almost like a teardrop shape. And at the other end is all the technological advances. It's the most highly competitive aspect of the machine industry, and that's full on innovation. Although when we're talking within specialty coffee, we really think that it's the full picture, the 5% of us or 7% of us that are totally involved in the specialty coffee movement. But really there is that other conversation, which is all those other people that are working towards that. And so on that front, it is paying attention to the market and trying to come up with technology that is appropriate, that delivers on the reliability front, that makes things easier for the technician while simultaneously expanding the scope and range of what you can do with coffee. It's a fascinating split, and both parts need equal amounts of attention. One of them, the more innovative technological side, seems to get a lot more press coverage, but there's still such a strong foundational point that goes into what the Linea Classic brings to the industry and to the people that use it.
Yeah, it sounds like a good kind of meeting of the two in this campaign over the last couple of years of the online Linea Love. I love that, and it's the machines that I work on and have worked on for the past few years, in fact. But I love your description of the two categories and the shape of the people you serve, that teardrop shape. It makes me think about the people who come into a cafe, a specialty shop, with signature beverages and cutting edge, maybe there's smoke involved or dry ice, I don't know. We don't expect somebody who just wants a cup of coffee to just jump on the bandwagon necessarily. And we want to serve them well, but maybe having something on offer, and slowly over time they buy into the innovation a little bit. Is that sort of the hope, or have you seen that happen where people who are just fine with the way the grinders are, with the way the machines are, they see the offering list and they see the innovations and they say, after years, all of a sudden, you know what, let's try that one innovative piece of technology to find out what that's about?
Absolutely, and great to tie it into the idea of the specialty drinks or some of the more intriguing beverage concepts that have been helping to make a name for some of the great cafes out there. I think that even larger multi-unit operators will, at some point in their development, look at what the new technology can bring, even if it brings something as basic but necessary as less waste or less energy consumption. Those 2 points can drive somebody into further technology, ABR technology, or at least using scales in mass mode, so that they're getting the maximum amount of yield off of the coffee they purchased, which is ultimately just a cycle of respect, because coffee is precious and it's picked one cherry at a time by hand all over the globe. And I feel that we have a big responsibility to people all along that chain, and to helping to make that journey to more engaged or possibly more exotic beverages and drinks, or broader concept cafes. We have that responsibility to help people come along with that. If they see our machine represented in all of those different segments, I think it provides confidence on both ends of the of both perspectives.
Yeah, well said. Well said. The confidence in getting a specialty experience from a place purporting to be a specialty coffee shop is something that is very valuable, and having that kind of equipment that produces consistent, reliable coffee is key, obviously. So having as much experience as you do, overseeing the operations of such an influential company, you have a great perspective on coffee shops. You've worked in service, in coffee bars, in roasteries. You're advice to us in specialty shops? Where should we be moving our industry forward to? What's critical for us to focus on in order to push the industry forward?
Absolutely at the core is hospitality. And I think that it almost sounds like a non-answer, but we need to remember that each engagement we have provides an obvious look into both our values as humans and the values of the cafe, the values of the business that it is part of. Then it moves to our responsibility, because hospitality creates responsibility to a myriad of participants. We've spoken of that community at Origin that works so hard, that is very separate in every way, sometimes from that cafe experience, and that responsibility never goes away and needs to constantly be cultivated, developed, and made more clear. Within our industry itself and with where we're going, I really see us at a stage where we're opening things up on the educational front. Transparency, encouragement. The trade organizations are doing an excellent job at bringing in more people into the industry, and I think that a lot of the leaders of the industry themselves are providing the background and the secret bits of information that make things successful. Then it's pathways. And to be vital and to continue to grow as the specialty coffee industry has grown, we need to continue to draw in new participants, youthful participants. We need to convert people that have different coffee drinking habits to maybe start embracing our philosophy and coffee drinking habits. And then that starts stepping into inclusion. And inclusion is critical right now. We can't expect our industry to continue to grow in such a way, to continue to be as impactful, unless we start making sure on a very intentional and conscious level that the people that are working in the industry are representative of the society in which that industry functions in. And we really have to all just make that a constant mantra. And that kind of change doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it can in some cases, because the industry is so dynamic, and new cafes can start with different buying programs or different types of layouts that reach customers and specifically hire to meet those requirements. But I think this is industry wide. We have this great opportunity to continue to transition into new adopters. And it's really making those new adopters feel the specialness of our industry by us being connected, open-minded, and inclusive in all that it has to offer.
Oh, absolutely. I love all of that. We are a shop should be representative of its neighborhood and its service to that neighborhood and service to its staff is that hospitality you're talking about. Like maybe we feel like we have people, we need to have people come to us, and we should be going to them. We should be serving and looking for opportunities to serve. And I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier in the conversation here about managing each other, or at least being a mentor to one another and helping each other be welcomed in. And just in coffee terms, I don't know if you see this, but like with the more developed coffees becoming more popular to reach a wider audience, even within specialty, instead of super light roasted coffees, we're seeing a wider spectrum of roast levels coming back in order to gain more people. So going out there and kind of bringing people in intentionally sounds like the key for us to be pushing our industry forward.
I couldn't agree more. And your comparison of slightly more developed coffees to the lighter developed coffees is really perfect. They're both specialty customers, and once we get outside of our own personal taste and kind of remove those blinders and can start to look more broadly at the industry, which I have to say has been a huge opportunity that this position has afforded me. I'm no longer held by coffee, a brand that I'm curating and maintaining. I can now start to look at all the coffee brands and all the people doing great work out there. But to grab that on and to make the the pathway into our industry easier for other people is key. Dark roasted coffee has a lot of appealing attributes, and, for a while specialty was really pushing back on it as a point of differentiation. I love seeing the maturity that we can be open-minded about what people want to consume, and then we can start on the real work of trying to influence them in a way that we find appropriate and respectful. It's a kind of a lofty goal, but we do want people to pay more for a cup of coffee, and that really is to drive value through the supply chain, through the value chain.
Yes, excellent. Well said. It makes me think about leadership, and it makes me think about the fact that in order to make this happen, we have to take a certain amount of authority in leadership, make it happen. Be we a trainer, a manager, or an owner. What kinds of traits of leadership would you say are essential for that, or would you like to see more of in the industry moving forward? Because it seems critical that if we're going to be inclusive of all demographics, and if we're going to be inclusive of all tastes in our communities, that we need to be looking to ourselves and kind of editing and becoming better as leaders in order to make those pathways happen. So what's critical for us to focus on in terms of leadership traits?
I think humility is one of the first pieces that I certainly look for. And when I say humility, I don't mean egolessness. I don't mean a total sense of selfness. I just feel that from the starting point, we are connected and responsible to so many different facets through the type of work that we do when we reach out to customers, that we have to have a proper perspective. And that proper perspective is that we're here to serve. And I find that combination of a servant mentality combined with a humble approach really facilitates some of the bigger leadership traits that are necessary. And those charitability works into that very much so, but also I like innovation. We need an environment where people can communicate and provide feedback, and to do so, our responsibility is to create safe places. So we need leaders that are aware of that, and we need leaders that are going to be okay with the idea that they are going to influence other people, and through that action of influence, people will create more opportunity for other people. The rising tide analogy comes to mind, and that is that if we're all providing great service, if we're all leading our company and we're focused on cultivating our team, finding people's strengths and giving them the opportunity to work within their zone of strength, rather than constantly challenged to not work in their zone of strength, which is always frustrating for everyone, we'll succeed more. We've reached a great point where there's so much literature, TED Talks, all of these different avenues where we can get better ideas about the different ways leaders can operate and how leaders can be effective and influential. I think that, and that leads me to people need to be immersive and intrigued and engaged. And if you're not engaged, it's going to be very hard to keep the focus of the people that are looking possibly to set an example or to set a direction or a path. Passion, it goes without saying, like, we love this industry, we're devoted to it, we're prideful, but we need to be continually impassioned about our product and about our connection. I feel on a management level, this deviates a little bit, Chris, from what you had asked, but it's a bigger point for me that a job as a manager is to clear space. It's to block and create opportunity for employees. And that gets into a very interesting territory where we all function and need recognition and like praise and want to accomplish. I think that's a human trait or characteristic. But one of the jobs of a manager is to set those personal feelings aside and then to look at the individual, the organization, the greater good, the goal of the strategy, and to start creating opportunities where other people shine. And it's that idea of giving that space it's going to make a great team. It's going to make a great company. It's, if you can give lobs to people in your organization that they can succeed, everyone is better because of it. Confidence is built. People will take greater risks. They'll bring better ideas to the table because they know that the leadership's invested in them and values them. And I really think that it's that dynamic that managers need to embrace. And it's hard because people have worked hard to get where they're at. And there's often a feeling like, hey, I've arrived. I'm a manager. I have authority. I have power. Now I'm going to exercise it. Whereas the reality is, as soon as you reach that spot, your influence may be at the highest, but your work is going to be at the most basic, and that is to encourage other people to get to that spot. And that really is what creates the pathway forward.
The more powerful position of service.
Nicely surmised. I went on a little bit lengthy there, but yeah.
Oh, it's so critical. I really appreciate the talking about management, because so many people do feel that management, and you hear it in the literature on leadership a lot, that there's this divide between don't be a manager, be a leader. When you're in any authoritative position, it seems to me that you are a leader, no matter if your title is manager or CEO or CFO or whatever it is. Or trainer, whatever. So I love the connection between humility and kind of using your power for the good of the community that you find yourself in, that professional community where you kind of abide.
Yeah, nicely surmised. I really appreciate that. I think we're at it. We're at this really great point. I'm not speaking just organizationally here at La Marzocco. I see it more broadly. I saw it on the show floor. I see people look to collaborate and to support rather than to differentiate and divide. So.
Well, this was a really great discussion. I'm really just thankful for getting to kind of chat about something that you're so passionate about, and the company that so many of us are is so dear to our hearts. And I want to know, in the coming years, what are your greatest hopes in this position as the general manager, overseeing as much as you do? What are your greatest hopes for the future of La Marzocco?
Well, to not mess things up. That would be at the top of my list. To keep driving the heritage and the commitment and pursuit of excellence forward. I think that is mandatory. It's the way our Italian team operates and teams in other countries around the world. And then here, specifically in the market, my goal is for La Marzocco to become even more engaged and involved with the coffee community outward as a support mechanism, as a training mechanism, those pathways we were talking about. We can provide more of those pathways and get more people included in all that the industry offers. La Marzocco is participating with UC Davis, and I see that as a really critical point for the industry and for us as a company. We need to connect with the academic world. We need to bring more scientific research into coffee. The World Coffee Research has done a great job with that, but these are just beginning steps. Most information on that front historically has been owned by private companies, and I'd like to see public companies, universities have that information so more people can become involved in it. And I see that as a key role that La Marzocco USA can offer. I also want to make the dance behind the bar as easy and ergonomic and as stressless as possible for baristas. And we are committed. It's true. Yeah. We're committed to handcrafting beverages, and there's a lot of steps that go into that. So we need to consistently work in that direction. So those are the general ideas. I suppose I should say grow our numbers by a fantastic percentage, but I feel like the support of La Marzocco, and there are so many people like yourself and others that have used the equipment, that are familiar with the company, the brand, the equipment, and the people. I feel like if we do all of those things right, the byproduct from that will be greater sales, will be more culture. So I'm taking that approach to get to that goal. And so far I've had the latitude to do that, and I feel very fortunate.
Well, it sounds incredible, and definitely hearing just the breadth of different programs and innovations and customer bases that you serve and affect and challenge and lead it's just a powerful thing to hear that the value of humility and the value of clearing that pathway forward is at the core of what you're doing. And I'm really thankful that you're at the helm. Just talking to you over the course of this conversation, people can use this conversation, I think, to help mentor them as leaders, because so many valuable things you've spoken. Thank you so much for taking the time to just chat with us about coffee machines, and I know we're the better for it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely a pleasure, Chris, and I really appreciate your work and the opportunity to speak with you today. It's been a great conversation. Great questions. Thank you.
Well, as promised, there's a lot here to think about and a lot to kind of mull over and apply in our lives. So much, some of the things that really are key for me was the idea that we are in a position as we get higher up to lift others up, and the work becomes that basic work of pulling others up to that level. Having a servant mentality and a humble approach to leadership and creating opportunities, those are all really key to building a community, a strong community of professionals across our industry. Being what he said is a bridge between the communities, the way that La Marzocco is a bridge between coffee communities. We can do the same thing. We have so many people we're in contact with in our lives, and we can be their biggest cheerleaders and provide them opportunities as we develop our careers. We can help develop others as well. So I love those elements being really core in what drives Andrew and La Marzocco, and it really makes me just love the brand more, and really thankful also to have gotten to know Andrew through this conversation. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us on the show and inspiring us in our careers to be better professionals and better advocates for those in our industry as we continue to develop and grow. Now, if you want the show notes for this episode, you can go to keystotheshop.com, and when you do, on the side, you'll see a place to put your email. When you do that, you'll be signed up to receive the show notes sent to your inbox weekly in our newsletter, which is just a summary of the key points and takeaways from each episode, along with the links, like the company the person represents, resources that we mentioned in the course of the conversation. If we talk about a book or an author, we want to get all of those links for you so that you have them ready to reference, and maybe it'll help you in your career. So go to keystotheshop.com and sign up for that. And if you want to reach out to me with questions or comments and feedback about Keys to the Shop, I'm always looking to improve the show, so please do so by emailing chris@keystotheshop.com. And of course, Keys to the Shop Consulting, you can talk to me about training and consultation for your company by emailing the same, chris@keystotheshop.com, or you can call me at 502-715-1465. And I also want to let you know that I will be at Coffee Fest Denver from June 8th until June 10th. That is coming up shortly here. And if you don't know about Coffee Fest, it's a great trade show for those of you looking to open a coffee shop, looking to run the one that you have now better. Great accessible educational opportunities, great vendors. They've been going for over 20 years, and I've been a long-time participant at Coffee Fest. I love the people there, and I would highly encourage you to check it out. If you're in the Denver area, definitely stop by and say hey to me. I would love to meet you. So go to coffeefest.com and learn more about what's happening at Coffee Fest Denver, and I hope to see you there. So take what you learned today, put it into practice at your cafe and in your career, and as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.